Well, one of the ways we're celebrating Canada's 150th anniversary at 100 Huntley Street is to interview great Canadians who are bringing their faith in God to incredible areas of Canadian life that impact our lives. And so to help us understand that, we're joined by Georgialee Lang, a wonderful family law lawyer in Vancouver. And Georgialee, you've been involved in not just one, but two groundbreaking cases on Canadian law, religious freedom with Trinity Western University. We're going to talk about that.
Yes.
And but let's go to family law.
Okay.
And the incredible difference that you understanding that God actually watches out for the formation of a person. But a devil is also chasing after people too. Take us back to pre-law days. How vulnerable were you?
Well, you know, at the time, you're living your life and you don't realize it, but I was very vulnerable. I see that now. I was a people pleaser. I wanted everybody to like me. I had this emotional vacuum in my body, in my heart, in my soul, because I was afraid to, you know, I thought that people wouldn't like me if they knew what I was really like. And I lived with that for a very long time. And of course, in my earlier or later teens, at 19 or so, that hole, that desperation was filled with a very sordid lifestyle that I fell into very easily.
So you start a life of doing drugs recreationally, like many young adults
That's
do.
right.
And it wound you up in women's prison.
That's right,
It's
yes.
a career killer.
Yes.
And you're a dental assistant, working away, partying hard on the weekends, and bang, you're charged with trafficking.
It wasn't trafficking, possession of heroin.
And this is months now in prison. What starts to turn it around for you?
Well, you know, I think people often say, you know, people that use drugs don't belong in prison. You know, it's a medical issue. But I have to say for myself, that was a wake-up call, a big wake-up call. And it was from that point that I realized that if I continued my life in the direction it was going, that it was going to be a very sad life. And so with God's help and a lot of prayer and a lot of soul searching, I realized that I had to reverse the course. It wasn't as easy as I hoped it would be. One of the later jobs that I got after I was out of prison and in my mid-20s, I was hired as a flight attendant for Ward Air, and I was absolutely thrilled. But of course, when I filled out the forms, they asked about criminal arrests and records. And I knew that if I told them, I wouldn't get the job. So I just omitted that and worked for the airlines for about a year and a half. And somebody somehow, and I'm not surprised, brought it to their attention. So somebody knew of me or heard of me. And so I was fired from that job.
It was probably the start of you learning that you have to trust God with coming clean.
Yeah, that's right.
What have you learned about God's forgiveness, and how did you take it? Like, how did you start with a clean record with God?
Well, you know, it's such a powerful gift to know that when you invite the Lord Jesus into your heart, that He does forgive. Now, it's difficult because there's so much shame. There is so much shame. You can't believe that you could actually be forgiven. It's impossible to grasp that concept, that it's all wiped away. And of course, while it's wiped away with God our Father, you're still living in the real world. And so, you know, you have to cope with those challenges.
It's quite a great story. The girl who was in women's prison now standing before the Supreme Court of Canada, arguing not once but three times.
3 times, yes.
On important cases.
Yes.
You have been a big part of helping the Bedford case be understood at the Supreme Court, that women need protection and those who purchase sex need punishment.
That's right.
Let's hopscotch along to another important case, a religious freedom case.
Yes.
Should lawyers who are trained by a Christian law school be able to practice law in Canada? This is the Trinity Western case, an incredible religious freedom case. What's your opinion?
Well, absolutely they should be. And the way the whole case and the circumstances unfolded here, I can speak, of course, to British Columbia, because that's where I was involved. But what happened was the governors of all the lawyers, the Law Society governors, made a decision. And they ruled 21-6 that students who had studied at a Christian law school, i.e. Trinity Law School, should be able to practice law. So they made the decision. They made the right decision. What happened in British Columbia was that a group of gay, lesbian, transgendered lawyers initiated a groundswell and brought it back to the Law Society and said, we don't accept your decision. You don't represent us. You should have lawyers vote. And so that vote took place. And of course, they had been able to marshal their forces, and the decision was overturned.
So you have two minorities fighting each other.
That's
now.
right.
The Christians saying we would like
Yes.
to have this law school.
Yeah.
The LGBT community saying no, you should
That's
not
right.
have this law school.
That's right.
Headed for the Supreme Court. What is your advice, your counsel then, for how Christians approach this in Canada? Here we are celebrating our 150th anniversary, asking we all want a place with our beliefs, with our actions.
You know, Lorna, I think it's all about respect. It's mutual respect, though. The LGBTQ community, I believe, doesn't respect the Christian community. I think we respect them. I understand their views. I understand their challenges, and I understand the past history of discrimination.
Yeah, you've argued for their cases in your family law practice.
I have. I've
You've
acted.
been their lawyer.
Yeah, acted for gay and lesbian parents.
Mm-hmm.
But their view is that their rights trump religious rights, and that's really the question. And I believe that the law is on our side. It is going to the Supreme Court of Canada, and hopefully it'll be heard within the next 12 months.
Wow. Okay, Georgialee Lang, thank you so much for being with 100 Huntley Street. Her full story is in part of that, is in this book where there's 8 of us in here, Faith, Life, and Leadership. Just thanks for sharing with us
Thank you.
Another great Canadian building story in this, our 150th anniversary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lorna.
More to come with 100 Huntley Street. Stay with us.